Ajeti, and I'm the agency portfolio marketing manager and the PCB's organizer for this session. As always, I'm delighted to have you all here with us. Before we start, I would like to inform you that PCB is organizing PCB Certified Advanced Audit Techniques event, which will take place in Stockholm, Sweden from June 27 to July 1st. For more information, visit our website. As for today's webinar, we will discuss how is ISO 45001 related to ISO 9001. To tell us more about it, joining us is PCB certified trainer and CEO of Ajeti Environmental Consulting, Mr. Jason Teliszczak. During the presentation, feel free to write your questions and comments in the question box in the right-hand control panel, or you can use the raise hand function. We will then unmute you and you will have a chance to ask the question directly to Mr. Teliszczak. All of the other questions will be answered accordingly at the end of the presentation. Also, if you are aware of a topic that you would like to discuss and participants would benefit from, please feel free to write down your suggestions in the survey at the end of the webinar. We are strongly committed to providing our audience with updated and useful information. Please, Mr. Teliszczak, you may start the presentation.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. As you stated, if you have any questions, please ask them. We're here to help you. That's the whole point of this presentation today. Again, I'm the CEO and founder of Ajeti Environmental Consulting. We have consultants throughout the world, globally. We've been helping clients for over 15 years, and we are in a number of different industries. We are in aerospace, automotive, e-waste, food manufacturing, medical devices, non-for-profits, and watercraft. So the presentation today is going to be dealing with ISO 9001 and 45001. So to start this off, we're going to talk about what 9001 is. So 9001 is quality. It's corrective action or preventive action is the new risk-based methodology. We're going to be talking about this in detail a bit. I made the slides a little bit longer in this risk area just so that everyone can go through it. And you can review a copy of it online in the future because that is the biggest part of the change of the standard for the new 2015 update to 9001. So don't be confused or worried when we go through that quickly. So again, 9001 was updated last year. 9001 is quality. It's the core ISO for all systems, and it was updated last year with the idea that all other systems would be updated as well to its structure, so that way everything would be in line. If you're a younger person coming into the workforce, graduating from college, this will make so much sense. To the rest of us, it means that we might have to rework a lot of our systems to make things line up, which can be a bit of a task, but going forward, it'll be a lot easier for everyone. So, with over 1.1 million certificates issued worldwide, ISO 9001 helps organizations demonstrate to customers that they can offer products and services of consistently good quality. That's very important here. These standards are meant for any type of organization or business. So before, 9001 was geared more towards products, what you're going to make, your widget per se. And now they're doing a better job of making it so that way you can see what services are actually offered. It also acts as a tool to streamline their processes and make them more efficient as to what they do. Very important here, that's the whole point of quality, is that when you're streamlining these processes, hopefully you're weeding out what isn't needed anymore, which should make your quality better in the product or service you're providing, as well as bring down the cost. So in the long run, you're not only improving quality, but you should be bringing down the cost for not reworking materials or not just wasting time in your organization. So again, we're going to be talking a lot about corrective action, preventive action, touching base on it here in a bigger portion of this. The original ISO wanted you, the original 9001 wanted you to fix things once you found that they were not working for you. So that would be a corrective action. So that's an action to eliminate the cause of a detected nonconformity or other undesirable situation. That was great. That's very good. Obviously, if you find something wrong, you should fix it. Then they updated the standard to include preventative action. That's an action to eliminate the cause of a potential nonconformity. So if you think something's going to happen, or if you had a near miss, something almost went wrong, that's when you're going to have preventive action. That was great too. Now they're talking about risk-based thinking. So you want to think about it even before that. You want to talk about all the potential risks before they actually happen. So there's three main areas that were updated. The process approach is going to consist of results that align with the standard. The PDCA has changed a little bit, which is a Plan, Do, Check, Act. If you're not familiar with that, we'll go over that in the following slides. That's individual processes as well as the system as a whole. And again, risk-based thinking, cannot stress this enough. Preventing undesirable outcomes, such as non-conforming products, services, etc. So now the safety side of it, we're going to talk about 45001. The new safety standard, we're transitioning from OSAS 18001. If you're not aware of that, that's already out there. It's been out there for quite some time. And we're transitioning to 45001, which should have been out this year. It was slated to be out in 2016, but it looks like it's going to be out later because the committee did not accept it. So again, 18001 was released in 2007. It was published by BSI, the British standards. ISO did not take hold of that standard at the time. It's thought that that's because they didn't have any management representative. The whole point of a safety standard is that everyone's a representative, that every single person within an organization has a say in what happens. So again, 45001 was on track to be published in October, and now it's been pushed back because the committee did not agree 100% or did not have the passing vote on what they liked or they didn't like. So why do we need an ISO safety standard? Because over 6,300 people die each day from work-related accidents or diseases. That's nearly 2.3 per year. The burden of occupational injuries and diseases is significant, both for the employers and the wider economy, resulting in losses from early retirements, staff absence, and rising insurance premiums. This is a really big deal, depending on where you may be located within the world, because obviously PECB does a great job of doing these webinars on a global level. Some countries have it where the more injuries that you have, your insurance premiums go up to the point where you could have a thriving company. You could be a Coca-Cola of the world, and depending on the country that you're operating in, if your insurance rates go too high, it's just going to bury you with your profits. So it's very, very important not just bringing the worker home, but to maintain that business going forward for all the employees that aren't getting hurt and that are working very diligently every day. The standard is currently being developed by a committee of occupational health and safety experts and will follow other generic management system approaches such as 14001 and 9001. Again, 9001 was updated last year as well as 14001. They line up pretty much perfectly, and we're going to go over how 9001 and 45001 line up today. They'll take into account the other international standards in this area such as 18001, International Labor Organizations, guidelines, various national standards, and the International Labor Standard and conventions. So, again, the layup, as I stated in the last slide, 45001 has been planned to line up with 9001. That was updated last year. Everything should be very uniform. And not everything's going to be perfect. And a good example would be if you're familiar with quality standards and you have medical devices such as 13485, that one didn't line up exactly, but they're really trying to make everything line up so it makes everyone's life easier going forward. So how do these pair up? Well, here's 9001 versus 45001. So pretty much spot on, except for, as you can see, with 5 leadership. The safety standard is going to have leadership and worker participation, which is something I mentioned earlier. You want to make sure that everyone has a say in safety because management may not be aware of what's happening out on the work floor or out in the warehouse or out in the shipyard or wherever they may be. So that's the point of that. And then the following sections, because now there's 10 sections, they all line up pretty well, as you can see here. And we're going to jump into each one of these so that way you can see it. We don't have a lot of time here today, so I apologize if I'm going a little quickly please feel free to ask your questions whenever you do, so that way we can touch on it. Again, PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, Act. This is nothing new. This was always a part of the standard that you should have been aware of. If you're new to this, plan means to establish the objectives of the system and its processes and the resources needed to deliver the results in accordance with the customer's requirements and the organization's policies, and identify and address risks and opportunities. What's the doing part? That's to implement what was planned. Check is when you're monitoring and you're measuring the processes and the resulted products and services against policies, objectives, requirements, and plan activities. Basically, do what you say you're going to do. If you feel like you want to make 10,000 products a year, state that. If you want to create 10,000 products and you can't, and it's a very hard thing to attain, don't say that you're going to do that. Say that maybe that's a goal of yours. Your system is your system. If you want all of your documentation to be in purple or red, so be it. That's your call. That's not up to the auditor, that's up to you. It's your documentation system, but make sure you do what you say you're doing. To act is to take actions to improve performance as necessary. Now, all of these were taken directly from the newer standard, so we'll see what's going on with the other one as well. Now, this is the draft of 45,001. So it's slightly different. It's pretty much the same. So establish objectives, programs, and processes necessary to deliver. Again, you're implementing the processes as planned. The checking, you're monitoring and measuring activities in regards to the OH&S policy. So they're dialing it in for the safety, obviously, here. Same thing with the ACT. Make sure you're seeing how it is improving for OH&S. So here's the new PDCA model for 9001 for quality. You can see that you're going to have your inputs and your outputs here. You're going to have your leadership in the middle, and then you're going into your planning, your operation, your performance, and your improvement. Now, the new PDCA for the draft document for 45,001 is going to look like this. A little bit different, same idea here, just a different layout. Now to see these next to each other, you can see that 6 is still planning, 10 is still improvement, 9 is performance and evaluation. So they're saying basically the same things, they're just created a little differently here. And again, this is based on the different committees that are a part of each standard. If you've never been a part of that process, it's very, very unique. You can go through some standards where everyone is basically just saying, yes, that's great, let's move on. And then you have other standards where everyone's very passionate, and it can literally take you about 2 hours to rewrite a sentence. And that can be a very good thing and a very bad thing. But I do feel that the safety standard is going to be very direct and very, very purposed towards safety, so I think that's why they're working a little bit longer. So let's look at these right next to each other for the main things that are going to change here for 9001 changing and what's being implemented into the new safety standard. So context is kind of new, a little more detailed than it used to be. So in section 4, we're going to talk about the context of the organization. Again, these line up, so that's nice. 9001 is talking about the context and how you're going to determine it, the internal issues that are relevant, and direction that you're going to take. The safety standard, 45,001, is the same thing, but again, it's based on strictly talking about your safety. As I mentioned earlier, these standards have to be pretty open-ended because the idea is that any type of organization can utilize these. Whether you're making something, providing a service, whether you're a business, whether you're an organization, it really depends on where you're going to go with this. So they have to be a little bit open-ended for you to take advantage of the standards. Now, I didn't write the whole thing out here on the standard based off of time frames, but just to give everyone a flavor of what's changing. Interested parties, this was always in the older standards for 9001. Make sure that you're communicating both internally and externally. So here's how the differences are. So here we're talking about interested parties on both of them. Again, the safety standard is talking about how it's going to be in relation to the workers, interested parties, and the occupational health and safety within the organization. Where the quality side, it's looking at more of regulatory requirements and what you have to do. You know, you really want to make sure that you're meeting your contractual requirements, your in-house requirements, and obviously any regulatory requirements for wherever you're providing or sending this service or this product. So that's pretty detailed, pretty new for both standards here. Leadership definitely needs to be in place. You're going to have your commitment. You're going to have to know what's going on with your policy. Again, the policy should be created. It should be very uniform to how the organization is providing their services or products. Everyone should be aware of it. It should be communicated to everyone. So here you can see the breakdown, the different sections here. Quality gets a little bit more detailed right off the bat, where the safety standard for 45001 kind of breaks it up a little bit differently here. And you do have the participation in 45001 because, again, they want you to be aware of and be helping out within safety. And it keeps going here, worker participation. A little bit more detailed in the planning sections of both of these standards. The safety one calls it out specifically. And then risk. Again, I spoke about risk earlier. A huge change to the 9001 process. This has been around for years in food safety, but now they're really taking this approach on a global level for all standards that you should really be thinking of the potential issues very far in advance, so that way you can hopefully have steps in place. I can't tell you how many times as a consulting firm, as a consultant, if we're helping an organization, they say, well, why do we have to do this? That's never happened before. We've been around for 10 years. We've been around for 20 years. That doesn't make any sense. We don't want to do that. That's the most difficult thing as a consultant hearing that, because they're hiring us to help them, and we're telling them that they need to do something because of a potential threat or what we've seen in industries, and they don't want to do it. And then there's some, we just had a client the other day that said, hey, I want to do this, this, and this because of the potential risks. What's my best option? And that was so fantastic because they're already thinking that way. They were listening to us. They were asking us for advice. There was no pushback, and that's very, very important here. So know about your risks. Address these risks and opportunities. Think about how they may affect your product or your services. Get them in place. Risk-based thinking is essential for achieving an effective quality system. I took out the word quality because it affects any system. The concept of risk-based thinking has been implicit in previous editions of this standard and other standards. And they can carry out preventive actions to eliminate potential nonconformities. They can analyze nonconformities that do occur and take action to prevent reoccurrences. Again, if you have a strong root cause, that should be assisting you with that. And make sure that's appropriate for the effects of the nonconformity. It's taken directly from the new 9001 standard. To conform to the requirements of the ISO standard, there needs to be a plan to implement actions to address risks and opportunities. Addressing both risks and opportunities establishes a basis for increasing the effectiveness of the quality management system, achieving improved results, and preventing negative effects. Very, very important. So again, there's a lot of slides here talking about risk. I went into detail here. Please review these whenever you have a moment, so that way you can understand the difference between risk-based methodology, knowing your potential impacts, what the severity is, what the probability is, so that way you can put these on a rating system. You can have a risk assessment matrix here, showing how critical things could be, calling them out. Is something going to happen on a daily occurrence, long-term? What's the probability of it? Is it going to really impact your organizations and others around you? Very, very important here. Please, again, look at this whenever you have a moment because it can affect your overall product, your reputation, the health and safety. There's many, many definitions here. So please take a look at that later. Sorry I went through that so quickly. We're going to go for planning now. Planning is important to think about what you're going to do in the future. If you're going very well, your company is very profitable, you're doing a great job, you want to expand. We want to build an extra warehouse. We want to create a new product line. You need a plan for that. What do we need? Do we need some capital investment to start interviewing workers? Do we need a new piece of machinery? Do we need, we're ordering this many materials from our suppliers, but we're going to need more. Maybe we need a different type of material. We need to start testing for that. Plan for things in the future. So again, when it gets back to this risk, do we have the risk worked out? If we're ordering wood from the forest that's next to us, but we're going to end up using all of that, is there a nearby reclaimed forest that we can utilize? Do you have a backup plan? You need to think about all these different things here, and this is how they line up next to each other. When you're talking about resources like I just was, think about that as well. You need the support, and you need to know what's going on. 9001 says, organizations shall determine and provide the resources needed for the establishment, implementation, and maintenance of continual improvement of the quality management system. Very, very important here. Now what does safety say? You shall determine and provide resources needed for the establishment, implementation, maintenance, and continual improvement of the occupational health and safety management of the system. So they're both important, they're both very similar, but obviously the quality is pointing towards the quality and the ongoing processes of what you're creating or servicing, and of course the safety is focusing on safety. Very good at lining up here. Make sure you have them figured out for both. Documentation. If an auditor comes in, it doesn't matter how great your organization is, if you're not documenting what you're doing, it doesn't really exist. It's not really true. It's not really happening. So make sure that everything's documented and recorded. Again, we're showing how they're comparing here. Very, very similar, which is great. Make sure your documentation is on point, it's recorded, and you do what you say you're doing. Outsourcing, procurement, and contractors. Make sure that you have control of any outsourced services or production. And the outsourcing on the safety side might be if someone is working as a temp on site, make sure that they're trained as well as all the other staff. Where's the nearest first aid station, here's how we evacuate, here's how we shelter, things of that nature. Important there, if you're on a quality side, you want to make sure that you're controlling what's going on for your products outside of if other people are doing these services. And make sure that you write this in your system. You need to be double checking what's going on. This is a longer, more detailed part of both of these standards because it gets into a lot of detail here. Evaluation. Make sure that once you do what you say you're doing, you look at it again. Okay, we produced 10,000 items. Was there a percentage of the items that were not accepted by customers? They didn't like them? Did we catch them internally? How can we fix this? This should be going into your corrective actions when you're evaluating, or simply your monitoring and measuring. If you have any devices that need to be calibrated, make sure that they're actually in good working order so that you're properly testing what you need to and want to. So that way you continually know what's going on with your product or service. Again, that was a very, very quick overview of 9001 versus 45001. Again, 9001 being quality, which was updated this past year, 2015, and the safety standard, should be coming out soon. It was slated for October. Right now it's looking more like it's going to be 2017. Thank you very much for your time today. Again, there was a lot of information covered very quickly. Do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Teliszczak, for this presentation. We actually have some questions. The first question is, will companies hesitate to implement the new occupational standard?
That's a good question. It seems as though with all these new standards that are coming out, if you are transitioning, you have 3 years to transition. So if you were 9001 certified to the old standard and this new standard just came out, do you have to get updated to the new standard immediately? No, you have 3 years. So what some companies are doing is they're waiting. Obviously, everyone procrastinates in life a little bit. So they're waiting a little bit to see what's going to happen in the industries and what's going to happen with auditors and training. I do see that with our clients, they're waiting as well. Not all of them are jumping in head first. They're kind of getting it gradual. What's nice to see is they're not waiting for the 3 years because they don't want to be at the back end and have it rushed. Everyone that was having an 18001 before is pretty on board because most of them were aware of other ISO standards. So they knew kind of the framework of everything. And an 18001 had a decent ISO framework because it lined up very closely with the old 14001 standard. So there is a bit of hesitation, but nothing too crazy.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, what was the main reason that ISO has decided to create a new standard since we have already one? I think the question is about occupational health, of course.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they did not per se own the old standard. Obviously, British standards did. I think they wanted everything to be more uniform, and I think everyone on a global level wanted to be more uniform. And as far as a badge or a good marketing tool, some people questioned, well, I know what ISO is, but what's this OSAS? Or I don't even know how to say that word. It's OHSA. They wanted it to line up. They wanted everyone to be on the same page. So that's really the main reason. And obviously, they spoke about how many injuries there were. They want to make the world a better place.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, should companies wait for ISO 45001 or just go ahead and implement OSAS 80001?
It depends on what your industry and what your clients are asking for. You can definitely implement safety policies and procedures. If you are implementing them and you want to go towards 18001, I would just suggest that you don't name your management review procedure management review 4.6, just name it the management review procedure, and then whichever standard you wish to get certified in, either now or in the future, you can point towards that. We've always told that to clients, and that's easier if you're going to add certifications later or if certifications are going to change. That way you're not reworking your whole system.
Okay, the next question is, are there any disadvantages of using this new standard?
I don't see any as far as 9001 and 45001. I don't see any disadvantages. I guess one little one might be if they keep pushing off the safety one and you're waiting to get certified, then yes, you might want to push through and get 18001 immediately. But again, that goes back to what I was just saying. You can have all these steps in place, just don't get yourself stuck by labeling them in the same numerical order as a certain standard. You can have all the steps in place and just have your own numbering system or labeling system, and you can definitely qualify for both standards and meet them.
Thank you. And the next question is, what are some of the issues that are delaying the release of 45001, and how will it be different or change from what is being presented today?
That's a good question. Usually most standards are pretty close to the draft document. The fact that this one was not voted as accepted by the majority means that people weren't happy with some of the language. If you do look at the draft document, you can purchase it on the ISO website for approximately, I think $60, pounds, whatever the conversion rate is going to be. It's not too expensive. But they were very detail-oriented. Again, as I stated earlier, that can be a good thing and a bad thing. So I think that's what the holdup is. I know in the past people were very concerned that the individual worker did not have enough rights, and that's why British standards took it over back in the day. And it wasn't too detailed in there. So I hope that answers the question. I'm not on the committee, so I don't know sentence by sentence, meeting by meeting what happened. But that's what I've heard from the industry, and that's what I've read myself doing research.
Okay, thank you. And the last question for today, because we are running out of time, is can we have an integrated policy for ISO 9001 and 45001, and what are the limitations?
No, definitely. I highly suggest having integrated systems. You just want one system. You don't want to have the other say, Here's my 9001 system. Here's my 45001 system. Here's my 14001 system. You should really mesh them together to the best of your ability. Some clients that want to keep it a little bit separate might have their policy and have the general whole policy in black ink, and then maybe their safety in red, their environmental in green, if you want to break it out that way, so it's very specific. But definitely have one intertwined policy that includes both. It is totally acceptable, and I would highly suggest it.
Mr. Teliszczak, I would like to thank you once again for this presentation. It was our honor having you as a presenter. I would also like to thank all of the attendees for taking the time out of their busy schedule to join us. We hope you enjoyed this webinar. We received all your questions, and because the time is limited, we will answer to your questions individually by email. Also, don't forget to check PCB's webinar schedule on our website, pcb.com, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And next Friday, we will discuss simple methods to meet OSHA's requirements. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.